Alrighty, I'll be taking up a question and going through the solution for a question on percent composition by mass. Alright, it's a two-part question. It says a calcium chloride sample has a mass of 8.4 times 10 to the minus 2 grams. And then part A says, what is the percentage by mass of chlorine in calcium chloride? Part B down here says, how many moles of chlorine are in this sample? All right, so first off, in answering A, we're trying to figure out the percentage by mass of chlorine. So we want to just like isolate this part here, the Cl2 of the calcium chloride. All right, to do that, we'll just figure out what the molar mass is, what the relative molecular mass is of calcium chloride, and then we'll take the proportion of it that is accounted for by chlorine, and we'll basically, if we can say that, we'll take the relative molecular mass of the chlorine and divide it by the relative molecular mass of the calcium chloride, and that'll give, we'll times that by 100, and that'll give us the percent of it that is chlorine by mass. Okay, so in other words, we actually don't need, for the first part, we don't need this value. Okay, that value is most likely going to be used down here in part B, right? All right, so we'll carry on here as we are. So what's the relative molecular mass of calcium chloride? So go to the periodic table. You'll see the calcium is 40.08, and let's just denote here that that's the calcium part, and then we're going to add the chlorine part. The chlorine is 35.45, reading that off the periodic table, and then there's two of them there, so we have to multiply that by 2. That's going to be the chlorine bit. Okay, so if we add all that up, it's 110.98 grams per mole. All right, now what part of that is actually just the chlorine part? I'm going to just kind of put a green box around that or something. Okay, so that's this part here. Okay, so we want to just take that chlorine part and say what proportion of that total mass, in any given sample is actually made up of chlorine. So we're gonna take, I guess that's, what is it, 70.9, isn't it? So we're gonna take 70.9 grams per mole, and we're gonna divide that by the 110.98 grams per mole for the whole calcium chloride. Whatever that result is, times it by 100. That should be our percent composition for chlorine, and it's 63.9%. Okay. Alrighty. So for part 2 here, or part B, I guess it is. See how many moles of chlorine are in this sample. So for this one, the mass is important, right? Because it's asking about this particular sample. So it's 8.4 times 10 to the minus 2 grams. So let's get that out here. 8.4 times 10 to the minus 2 grams of calcium chloride. Well, if we know that any given sample of calcium chloride is 63.9% chlorine, we can just take that mass and multiply it by 63.9 as a percentage, right? So we've got, that's going to work out to 0.084 grams times 0.639, and that will give us just the mass of chlorine, right? If you pump that into your calculator, you'll get 0.0537-ish grams of chlorine. Okay, you then take that mass, I'm going to do this in green, you take that mass and you take the molecular mass of chlorine, the molar mass of chlorine, and you put it into the formula. Moles is equal to mass divided by molar mass or molecular mass. So 0.0537 grams divided by 35.45. Here you use the atomic mass for just one chlorine. If you're wondering, why don't we make it 2. Why don't we use 2 chlorines? We already factored in the 2 chlorines above to figure out the percentage chlorine by mass. So here we just use the 1 chlorine. Pump that into your calculator, you get, with 2 significant figures, 0.0015 moles, or 1.5 times 10 to the minus 3 moles. Ta-da!